I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
Morning. Apologize for the lateness at the start of the meeting. We're waiting for some commission members to show up. The weather-related situations that might cause some delays or some cancellations of some commission members being here. With that being said, we do not have a full commission quorum, but we do have the executive board quorum established, so any business that needs to go forward at this point would have to be led by the executive board for first, second, or any other issues, unless the we're notified that the full commission is here. So, with that being said, we're going to have a governor's appointment when Attorney David Hellback shows up. We'll defer that until which time that he shows up, and we'll begin with the staff service award with our executive director, Ty.
Fantastic. I'm looking for Bill. There's Bill.
He was here.
Bill Brown has completed 30 years of service with NIRPC, which is an amazing accomplishment. One of the benefits of being new is as I talk with other MPOs and all, I get to hear what a great staff I have. And I mean that. People have come up and said that. And one of the names is particularly among the other MPO directors that I always get called out to me is Bill. I've been told often we have one of the best modelers in the state for transportation modeling, and that is not easily come by. So Bill has, his tenure here has allowed for not only to develop those skills and become really adept at it, but because he's been at NIRPC for that length of time, he's been able to tweak those models in the best possible way to be able to give us the best data that we need in northwestern Indiana. His familiarity with this region has been extremely helpful, and his ability to immediately identify projects and be able to do what we need to do well and efficiently has been greatly appreciated, and I know it's one of those folks that I've been able to rely on since coming. So with that, I want to congratulate Bill on 30 years and present him with that certificate here. And if anyone one of you want to ask him some old stories from old days or something, feel free to catch him. I'm sure he will tell you.
Very good. Report of the chair, I'm going to defer. There's not much action coming from the chair on this report. The majority of the action that's going to be coming from the NIRPC will be in the committee reports that are leading on this agenda, so we'll defer to those committees. We'll begin with the presentations, and we'll begin with the Lake Michigan Coastal Program. I believe Sergio is here.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I really want to talk to you guys. You're going to shut this real quick. Talk to you or speak with you briefly about our program, Lake Michigan Coastal Program. It is a process or a product from the Coastal Zone Management Act, which happened in the early 1972. Our program has been in effect for about 10 years, a little over 10 years. The state of Illinois just recently came on board about a year and a half ago, and then, or 2 years ago, and then Alaska dropped out. So it's all these states within a coastal region or within the Great Lakes, or letting a water body like that. I said we've been in effect for about 10 years, and within those 10 years, we have distributed close to $10 million within the coastal program area. Our purpose essentially is to protect, restore, and preserve, as well as manage and plan for coastal resources in the area. They deal with cultural, historic needs for economic development. The way we go about doing this is really 3 steps. One is we go through with, we offer collaboration between state, local, federal agencies, as well as different organizations and agencies within the coastal program area. We offer technical assistance. We offer technical assistance. And then the final thing we offer is granting opportunities or funding opportunities to carry out some of these resources that we've identified. This is our program area. So it's not just the communities along the shoreline. We actually go down as far as Cherville, Winfield, Portage, Valparaiso, Trail Creek, and as far east over as Michiana Shores. So if you're within that boundary, we are willing to offer you technical assistance as well as funding opportunities. The program I work with is called TAP. It's a Technical Assistance Planning Program. I came on board about 4.5 years ago. The reason for that is that the state realized, or our program realized, that about 25% of the project that they have been receiving, or requests for assistance they've been receiving, dealt with the city planning and urban planning issues. So they brought me on board, and within that program, we actually have several components that we work with. One is obviously technical assistance, education outreach, hazards, and we have our own program objective, as well as a planning committee that we run everything through. The education outreach portion is we actually partner up with NOAA, which is the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency or Administration, and we do on-site training. We bring them on board to do on-site training. There's also opportunities for online instructor-led trainings and online self-guided training. There's a brochure here in the front that actually gives details on the type of programs that we offer within the training that we bring in from NOAA. This year alone, we brought in a program that dealt with project design and evaluation. Last year, we did a green infrastructure program here, as well as a few years ago, we did a coastal resource planning training on site. We also have periodical publications and reports that deal with economic development within the coastal region of the Great Lakes, as well as how to manage stakeholders in public hearings. Some of the resources that we have on site is working with our communities, some of our partner communities that we help fund through projects, as well as offer technical assistance. For example, we have the Porter County Model Landscape Guidelines and Ordinances, the Marquette Greenway for Burns Harbor with the comprehensive plan, the sub-area plan, which include the downtown US 20 corridor plan. We also worked with, this is a $100,000 project that we helped fund, was the joint zoning ordinance in LaPorte County between the cities of Michigan City and City of LaPorte, as well as Town of Chesterton comprehensive update with a sub-area plan. We also worked with the master plan for the city of Gary, as well as with these, actually helping fund components that came out of this Whiting master plan parks plan there. The most recent one that we actually help fund is the downtown Hobart master plan update, as well as we also have our additional programs that we actually help fund, which is level of service as well as public access for the program area within our program area of Lake Michigan Coastal Program. So there you've got these documents for resources, as well as the TAP toolkit, which identifies all the regional and local plans, well, not the local plans, the regional plans that can be applied towards for technical assistance in creating additional projects. And then the final document we have is the shoreline, model shoreline ordinance. Some of the requests that we've been hearing from some shoreline communities is how to deal with nuisances, and so we've outlined a couple of model ordinances to help communities with that. The most recent project that we're working on was started in 2011, 2012. We started doing data gathering with the communities along the lakeshore. We're working this year to convert the structures identified along the lakeshore, converting that into GIS layers. And hopefully in 2014 we'll release that to the public as well as our partners and different agencies to either incorporate into their planning along the shoreline, which includes land uses as structures as well. So that's the type of assistance that I offer from the Lake Michigan Coastal Program as part of planning. I'm going to turn over to my colleague Doreen, who's going to speak about special projects and stormwater.
Good morning, Doreen Carey, a Special Projects Coordinator for the Lake Michigan Coastal Program. And my main responsibility is addressing the Lake Michigan Coastal Non-Point Water Pollution Control Plan, basically stormwater management from all aspects of rural, urban, agriculture, the hydro modification, marinas, and I work with local, state, and federal partners to make sure we're meeting the requirements of NOAA the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and EPA, so that we are, to the extent possible and what is required by law, meeting the obligations of the coastal program requirements. Our goal is to improve coastal water quality and habitat. We want to protect our drinking and recreational waters now and in the future. Excuse me. The main way that we are addressing stormwater, particularly in the first flush, is to slow it down, spread it out, soak it in. There's a number of measures that mimic the natural environment or try to contain and control stormwater before it reaches our tributaries in Lake Michigan. Some of the ways that our communities are addressing this are through those measures. We sometimes refer to that as low-impact development or green infrastructure. And my role is to assist communities with developing plans for those kinds of projects and working to do this land development or redevelopment that works with nature to manage stormwater and prevent water pollution.
Doreen?
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Could you go back to the one you just were at? and I apologize, but this has been on my brain all night. This right here is so important. Right now, we're struggling, and at least half the people in this room are on the back of their head are worried about what's going on right now. In Lake County, we have 600 miles of legal drains that I'm trying to make sure don't flood. And one of the things that we're trying to do is get that water out of there. Meanwhile, the Little Calumet River and the Kankakee River would hope that that water doesn't get out of there, because if the water gets out of there, then one or both of those rivers flood. So we've got all this water collecting in this 600 miles and some non-legal drains too, right now as we speak. And a lot of them are overtopped, and I'm looking at the weather, are right at the top, and we're gonna have problems today and tomorrow. So we have these conflicting goals in a sense. I want to make sure that that water gets away so it doesn't flood a Crown Point or a Highland or whatever. But the two big rivers, you don't want the water to get there too fast, because then that'll flood. What's the solution to those two conflicting goals? Right there. Right there.
And we were trying to meet our time obligations here, but I'll just say that yes, if we can control and contain the water where it lands on the ground to the extent possible, we will slow down that rush to the rivers and help prevent flooding and prevent pollution as well, because any filtration or infiltration that you can provide to water will remove those pollutants that are coming off the hard surfaces from our roofs and highways and agricultural additions as well, the fertilizers and pesticides and things like that. So, right, all of these things, green roofs, rain barrels, trees, bioswales, pervious pavement, rain gardens, will contribute to holding that water for a period of time so that we don't send it right to our tributaries into the lake. So communities are implementing these projects and measures now, and the coastal program can help advise and provide technical assistance to do that. And as you'll find when at our next presenter, in addition, provide some grants to assist with that. We also provide technical assistance to watershed planning. We have a special task force that we're working on now to address the potential impacts of septic systems on our water quality. We're working with the state health department and the county health departments. We're working with NIRPC and several other partners who want to work with the public so that we get better public participation and understanding of septic system management. We have a database that we hope to commonly use across the counties that will hopefully someday become more publicly accessible to people so we can check on these things over time. And in addition, develop a program for inspection and long-term maintenance and operation to make sure that people are maintaining their septic systems properly over time. We have a Clean Marina program. Our effort is to get all of the marinas in our coastal area to be designated clean marinas. We have 3 now that are designated right on the coast, and that's great. That is Hammond, Portage, Michigan City, and Sprague Point. And we have other marinas that are working on getting designated right now in East Chicago. We have another technical assistance program, which is Natural Resources Technical Assistance. We have an ecologist, Derek Nimitz. He's a regional ecologist, and he will assist you if you're interested in doing restoration or native plantings and management as part of your program. So natural area restoration, planning and monitoring, invasive plant control, property inspections for potential natural areas, and native plant species recommendations for your use. So all of these things, our planning and our technical assistance are for you to utilize for your projects. And then the next step is many of these are eligible for our grant funding program, and Maggie Byrne is going to talk about that.
So as Doreen said, my name is Maggie. I'm the grant specialist with the Lake Michigan Coastal Program. I have basically 2 roles. One is not only to administer the program and make sure that the grant funds are dispersed and grantees are held accountable and interact with NOAA to make sure grants are appropriate. But I also offer technical assistance in helping you to form your grant proposals, develop them so that they have a better chance of being funded. So the grants program provides funding to communities and organizations that seek out social, economic, and environmental solutions that promote partnerships, and partnerships are very important, and balance the use and protection of the coast's valuable yet fragile resources. And as we said, the funding comes from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. We have 2 programs. I'm going to focus mainly on the large grants program because that's probably what's going to be most interesting to you. We make available approximately $600,000 every year for the large grants program. It's a competitive program. It's administered by us, the DNR, Lake Michigan Coastal Program, in cooperation with NOAA. The eligible applicants would be units of local government, and planning commissions or park boards, things like that. Area-wide agencies such as NIRPC or the RDA are eligible as well. State agencies, colleges and universities, conservancy districts, port authorities and basin commissions, and then nonprofits. And there are special conditions that apply to nonprofits, but I won't talk about that today. This presentation really just scratches the surface of our grants program. I do grant workshops in July and August that really get into the program in depth if you're interested in applying. So we have 6 different funding categories within the large grants program. You can do land acquisition projects, low-cost construction, education and outreach, planning, coordination and management, applied research, and emerging issues. And these are areas that we as a team can offer technical assistance. So we have a funding criteria is we have $150,000 maximum for land acquisition projects. That's the maximum that you can request. $100,000 would be the maximum that you could request for low-cost construction projects. $50,000 would be the maximum for all of the other categories. Now, all of these projects require a 1-to-1 match, so if you have a $100,000 project, $50,000 of it would come from the coastal program, and $50,000 would have to be provided by you. And this is on a reimbursement basis, so you're outlaying the funds at the get-go, and then we would reimburse you for that. It's usually an 18-month project completion process. Sometimes they don't take that long. And it's an annual program, so you can apply every year. I will quickly go through this. As I said, there's a required 1-to-1 match. That can be in the form of cash, but it can also be in kind. You can use other grants from local, state, or private funds. And basically, as long as it's not federal, it can usually be eligible as match. This is our timeline. I just really want to emphasize that the whole process takes about a year. The priority setting starts in June. You would submit your pre-proposal in September. And then if your pre-proposal is approved, you would submit a full proposal, and you wouldn't really find out until July whether or not you were receiving your funding. There are 5 different, it's a very rigorous and time-consuming process. There are 5 different approvals depending on your project. We have a coastal advisory board who has to approve your project, and then there's a technical advisory board. The state historic preservation officer sometimes has to approve your project. If you're doing low-cost construction or land acquisition, it would have to be approved by the Division of Fish and Wildlife. And then finally, it has to get approved at the federal level by NOAA. And then small grants, it's a much smaller program. It's a rolling program. You don't have to apply on a yearly basis. We have only 2 categories for the small grants program. It's a $5,000 maximum request, 1-to-1 match, 6 months, and as I said, it's a rolling process. So I just wanted to throw in there several examples of what would be an ineligible project for this program. Any kind of infrastructure. Hard infrastructure like roads, parking lots, dredging, routine maintenance. These are supposed to be projects that would improve a situation rather than continuing a routine maintenance kind of thing. Any kind of wetland or habitat restoration, excuse me, that's required as a permit or regulatory action, that's also not eligible for funding. And any kind of construction has to be on public land. And now I just want to show you several examples of projects that have been completed in the past. These are only a few examples. Many projects have been completed over the last 10 years. But this is just to give you an idea, or maybe even get you started thinking about things that you might want to do in your city or town. Michigan City did a public access project. They built a fishing pier on Trail Creek, which gave more access to that waterway. A natural area restoration was completed by the Indiana University Northwest. This is right on the Little Calumet wetlands. Right outside these offices, NIRPC did a native landscaping demonstration project. So you had to walk past it to get in here today. And Lake County Parks has done land acquisition projects, many land acquisition projects, but this is an example of where they added acres to an already existing natural area. And planning, coordination, management. Again, Michigan City, they took a park that they wanted to redesign and requested funding and did the project. So basically, the way that this would work would be that you would work with the 3 of us kind of as a team, sort of craft it. We could help you craft your project and then frame your proposal so that it would have a better chance of getting funded. Did I miss anything? All right. If you have any questions, feel free to ask now if there's time, or we'll be around until after the meeting, so you're welcome to purchase them. We also have several handouts that you could have picked up on your way in, and here's our contact information. Thank you.
Any questions of the commissioners? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have a presentation on environmental, and we have Lee Botts.
Yes, I'll go down here. I do not have a visual presentation today, although our project is visual in nature. I'm here to give you information about a project that's rapidly becoming a community-wide or regional-wide project to produce a documentary we have the tentative title of the Indiana's Shifting Sands, which denotes the changes. It refers to the major changes that are going on in this region, which the people who live here mostly do not understand, much less the people out there in the rest of the world. The bottom line for me is to demonstrate that Northwest Indiana is no longer the pollution sink that it is believed to be by nearly everybody. And this project has been inspired by several things. One is the convergence of several anniversaries coming up in 2016. The bicentennial of the state of Indiana, the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service, which has special significance for the whole Chicago region, because the first director of the National Park Service, the first thing he did was propose what he called Sand Dunes National Park. The 50th anniversary of that park actually being authorized finally after 50 years struggle by Congress in 1966. And the 4th anniversary is the creation and establishment of the Indiana State Park System, which is one of Indiana's glories, which I don't think very many people appreciate. This is a not-for-profit project. The Legacy Foundation, the Community Foundation for Lake County, is the fiscal agent. Doreen Carey is one of the volunteers in her spare time. As we have a growing team of people. I am not experienced in actually producing a documentary, so I'm very grateful that Pat Wisniewski, who is the producer of the recently released documentary about the Kankakee watershed, is our technical producer and part of our team. We're receiving assistance from some people at Lakeshore Public Television, and the funding we have so far is a grant from the Coastal Program as part of coming under the category of public outreach and education. I wanted to tell you about this project because we are working with people from all that are contributing and helping make this happen, including the municipalities. The changes that are occurring that people don't understand, I'll just summarize to say, one is that the actual pollution from the past that we are burdened with is being cleaned up in nationally significant ways. One of the things that Pat Wisniewski talks about is the wows that you get in documentaries. This region has a lot of wows. We have globally significant natural resources, and we are making nationally, if not globally, significant progress in dealing with the conflict that existed between the industrialization of the area and development of use of the resources and the partnerships that are now addressing the need for economic development in new ways. So we have major cleanup that's already been accomplished. We have changes in the way industry operates, which means there will be less pollution. There already is much less pollution being released into our environment. There will be much less as time goes on. We have truly what I call restoration revolution going on through partnerships between local governments, the not-for-profit land trust organizations like Save the Dunes, Shirley Hines Land Trust, and others, and the partnerships keep growing, and local governments increasingly are participating in these kinds of projects. We want to know about those projects. Another reason I wanted to tell you about what's going on is because we want to know about what you're doing. We may come knocking on the door and asking for permission to film things that are going on. Again, my name is Lee Botts, B-O-T-T-S. My phone number is 219-938-2863. I have a card. I don't know if I have enough for everybody. A lot of you know me already. I'm pretty easy to find. And will appreciate your input. I had hoped to bring a 5-minute trailer to show you today, but it isn't quite finished, not quite ready. But we will, the next time I come, we will have something to show you. And I promise not to take more time this morning and keep talking. But if there are any immediate questions, I'd like to answer them, or you could contact me. And I do have a card if anybody doesn't know where to find me. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. As I said, it's becoming really a community-wide project. We're receiving so much encouragement and help from so many sources. Thank you.
Perfect. Any questions of Lee or the commissioners? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go right back up to the governor's appointment, and Attorney Dave Almack is here now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for my tardiness. In my earlier years, I had captured the ability to be in two places at one time, and I've discovered as one gets older, that's harder to do, so I apologize. As most of you know, one of the appointing authorities to our commission is the governor of the state of Indiana, and we have received communication from the governor indicating that Governor Pence is appointing as his representative to the commission Representative Ed Soliday. And I have reviewed the appointment letter, and it is in proper form. Ed, I'm sure, is occupied in Indianapolis today, but I'm sure he will join us as expeditiously as he can, and when he does, we need to welcome him, obviously, as the new governor's appointment.
Very good. Officially not done, right?
Yes.
Okay. Aaron, are we still below?
Yes, we're too short.
Too short still? Okay. All right, so the next order of business is the approval of the minutes on March 21st, 2013, and the approval that needs to come from the executive board member.
So approved.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Second, any discussion? Corrections, deletions, or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Thank you. We'll move right on to the Environmental Management Policy Committee, and Kevin's here this morning.
About a little over a decade ago, I was chairman of the Environmental Management Policy Committee. I am again, that's why I'm introducing this. At the time we were expanding the mission of environmental management, we were dealing mostly with air quality, as that's what we were funded for. And we moved more to land quality to help all of you with the brownfields and that kind of thing. We also expanded into water quality. And an opportunity came up with the new MS4 program for phase 2 communities. We were on effect in Chicago and Indianapolis were phase 1. So that corralled in a lot of your communities. MS4 is municipal separate storm sewer systems. And some of your communities are going to be part of this initiative as of the new census. So be aware. What Reggie Corthols and I as chairman had put together was a program that we could have cooperation and collaboration with our communities and create product and try to be consistent with our message to our citizens. And ask George Van Til to champion the cause to help sell it. The same concepts to the Lake County communities and Lake County government. Unfortunately, I didn't find a champion with LaPorte County. Try as I might, I failed. However, due to George's help, due to the staff, we created a program that has been growing and changing and really is on the verge of another update. And Kathy Luther is here to talk about that today.
Thank you, Kevin. At the last board meeting, it was asked to have an update on the program, so. No, I'm just kidding. So Kevin gave some of the background. I'm going to give a little bit of background, some of it Kevin just said, and then what we've managed to accomplish in the last few years here at NIRPC and where we are now with this program. This is the list of communities that for the past 4 or 5 years have been part of the MS4 Community Partnership at NIRPC. We originally were known as the Northwest Indiana MS4 Community Partnership. In 2011, we rebranded. That kind of MS4 kind of sounds like a weapon system, and we were having a lot of problem with traction there. Or maybe a virus, I don't know. But so I'm going to talk to you about, Kevin just did, what an MS4 is, what we've done here, some of the advantages of the partnership have and benefits, and then some of the challenges we've had. Turn off the animation. So if you're an MS4, you own or operate a system for collecting and conveying stormwater. It could be pipes, it could be ditches, and you're in an urban or urbanizing area. So some of you may not know a lot about this, but the program changes all the time. It could happen to you, so it's important to be aware of it. Again, this started in 1990 with really big cities having to get stormwater permits. In 1999, phase 2, states could regulate all the MS4s. In 2003, while IDEM was working on the rule, that was when NIRPC was working with many communities on the original regional watershed framework. And so when they promulgated the rule, and so many of our cities, I want to say about 30 communities have to have a permit. Anybody with a population over 7,000 within the urbanized area, we formed the community partnership. 23 communities have been in the MOU. We're in the middle of the second 5-year permit cycle for these communities. In 2004, and then again in 2010, the entire group of communities agreed on a mutual scope of work that NIRPC would perform for the communities in question. And that each of the communities would then incorporate that scope of work into their permit. The permit requirements for the MS4s, there are 6 of them. NIRPC's contract is to perform 2, public education and outreach, and public participation and involvement. Municipalities and counties also have responsibility for 4 other items. Our responsibility in that area was primarily for training. As part of the public participation and public education, you can train your employees. I think that was one area where there were expectations from the beginning that we would do more than the 2 we were contracted for. Those were very challenging expectations to meet. So what do we do in public education and outreach? What's required is communicating to the public. Why is stormwater important? The public usually only thinks about stormwater on a day like today when they're worried like I am about Lake Luther in my backyard. And I apologize because I did have the sewer crews out of my backyard last night. Well, not my backyard. Anyway. What daily activities can do to water quality and what people can do to change that. Public involvement means you're supposed to get the public involved. You're supposed to tell them what you're doing in your community, let them know about your program, and involve them in activities, volunteer monitoring, rain barrels, stream cleanups, that kind of thing. So what does NIRPC do for these 23 communities in the contract? What we were in our scope of work is classroom and youth outreach, advertising, press releases, brochures, materials, training, fairs and festivals, partnerships, and surveys to see how we're doing. Are we teaching anybody anything? And that was pretty much based on a pretty low fee. $2,500 bought you into the program, and then there was a per capita fee under the idea the more people you had, the more materials you would need. And so that revenue to NIRPC was $164,000 a year. As initially proposed, the expectation, I think, of most of the communities was a new program was that it would be turnkey. They would pay NIRPC, we would do all this stuff, they would get all the credit, and everybody would be happy. NIRPC would keep all the records of all the education that we did, we'd do the compliance reporting, and that would all be great. And I came in kind of after about maybe 2 years of that. And I came from the private sector, totally client focused. We're gonna do everything you guys want to do. And get this done. I never had a project before with 23 clients in one project. That was one challenge. What are the benefits of having this partnership? Cost savings of scale, particularly with advertising. It doesn't make sense for 20 towns to all buy the same ad at the Times when you could buy it once, or the Post Tribune. Have a common message, and let's not confuse people with too many things going on at once. And the revenue could provide some leverage or match. We actually have used some of the MS4 dollars to access coastal dollars. For example, we got a small grant and did a coastal blitz volunteer monitoring blitz one year, and now we have 20 sets of volunteer monitoring equipment because we were able to access the coastal dollars. Another leverage opportunity because we had staff and we were able to access Leary grant. This past 2 years developed the Wanda Lakes program, which is a whole entire program on educating on landscaping for the public. And we're going to be continuing to go out with that until the grant expires this year. So what are the challenges? Collaboration has been a challenge, except on a day like this. Stormwater probably isn't the highest priority in most of your communities. Participation has been very sporadic by the communities. The result is that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The people who wanted me to go in a certain direction and showed up at the meeting, that's the direction I went. So we kind of were uneven, weaving around. Other challenges, people were paying in on a per capita basis. They wanted the materials on a per capita basis. The result is some people got more than they needed, other people didn't get as much as they could use. Everybody's got competing priorities, and a lot of the people who were participating wanted NIRPC, this not to be a full staffing program for NIRPC, don't spend all the money on staff. So we tried really hard to keep the hours down, which made it hard to have boots on the ground. And across 2 counties, there were really uneven partnership opportunities. The whole, I think, premise of the program is that we would partner beyond just the municipalities. We would partner with the Save the Dunes, we would partner with the coastal programs and DNRs. We would partner with county agencies. Porter County, there's a lot of engagement with Save the Dunes and watershed activity. Lake County, not so much. Lake County Soil and Water and agencies were much better staffed. Porter County had much smaller agencies. It was just kind of uneven. And if you're looking at partnership, we kind of tended to drift where the opportunities lie. And really the geographic scope is huge. With the kind of mantle to hold staffing down in 182 schools, that was really hard to do. And it was also pretty hard to create local involvement opportunities. If you come and say, I'm with your town and I want you to help, people are responsive. If you come and say, I'm with the region and I want you to help, people don't have that loyalty and that interest. So that's been a challenge. $165,000, it's a good amount of revenue, but it's really hard to split up into that many activities and make a real difference in one place or the other. And nobody wanted to raise the prices. Who wants to raise? Everybody's taxes are going down. So we kept it static, never changed the fee structure. And as you know, everything gets more expensive all the time. And finally, the biggest challenge was, even though at the end of the first audit, the state, who is Reggie, who formed this program, there was a change in expectations. Everyone's audit, our program was satisfactory. We were meeting the needs, or meeting the requirements of the rule. But the state didn't want to have those turnkey. She wanted to have sweat equity and have the communities participating. So as a result, when we went to redo the MOUs, we changed the scope of work to an on-request delivery system. The plan at that point was if the community contacted us, asked us to do something, we would deliver. That would be their sweat equity. Calling, making a request. The other part of the sweat equity would be making sure they were totally responsible for distributing materials. And also to facilitate school contacts, the places where we were most successful in getting into schools, but where the town sent a letter, got us a teacher, got us involved. So again, that local interest helped. We also wanted the communities to tell us about their events so that we could provide support for them. So in 2000, the last permitting cycle, well, the 2012 reporting cycle, we rebranded, got rid of the MS4 in our name. We distributed a whole bunch of stuff. We have a mascot for the program, Splash, and he made 36 appearances around the region. We have displays that are available for any community to use. And we were using them at the fairs, although that was another item. The cost of the fairs kept going up. Fees didn't. It was a challenge to balance that. In the advertising, we did a lot of advertising and articles and online ads, and keep doing that. More advertising. Right now, I've still got some billboards in market. We did some advertising, movie theaters, radio spots. We co-promoted with the gas can exchange so that we could leverage those resources of the air program, the water program. And we attended all these activities. And we provided training workshops. And we have But example, I was talking about uneven participation. We spent probably a couple $1,000s of the partnerships dollars on training videos so that each community could check it out and no one would have to spend those dollars themselves. So they could train your own street department or whatever department you wanted. Over 2 years, 10 MS4s checked it out. So we're providing resources and a challenge to get them utilized out in the street. At the same time as we were doing public education, we did a lot of Hoosier River Watch. That's a volunteer monitoring program. Training teachers and people how to do that program is an excellent public involvement activity. And we did workshops with coastline green infrastructure. We participated with International Beach Cleanup and encouraged all the MS4s to pick sites in their communities. So we did all those things, but some of the challenges remain. We still have some uneven participation and capacity. And the state expectations continue to change. Despite all the activities we conducted, they weren't evenly distributed in every community. And the state has now said that, well, the regional activities don't count unless they're in the local community. Well, so now that's a shift for us. That's not one regional program, that's 23 local programs for many activities, which is, wasn't gonna work. Meanwhile, the MS4s formed another group, Northwest Indiana Stormwater Advisory Group, to work on those other 4 MCMs, the construction ones, the ones that we weren't contracted to work on. This fall, they notified me that they wanted to reduce the scope of work. Why? Some of the MS4s have really grown. They've increased their capacity, hired their own staff. Some of the county agencies really were doing a lot better job in the schools than we were. That was an area that wasn't our strength. And some of the communities wanted to have their own materials. They didn't want to have regional branded. They wanted to have their name on it because of the state interest in shifting to local. Because of that, I anticipated the program would shrink. I reassigned program staff and reduced the capacity. We couldn't do all the services. Many of the communities still wanted us to do all those services, but with the expected reduction in revenue, we couldn't deliver that. So we have a new MOU. The new MOU is, there's 16 MS4s who have signed on to it, so we do still have a regional program. We are providing this service for 16 communities. The new program budget's about $100,000 less than it was based on those participation. The scope of work is a la carte. You can buy more or less depending on your capacity and your interest. So you can buy into the regional advertising for one fee. You can buy into regional training for another fee, and other programs. For materials, we took out the per capita fee entirely. It's the exact same cost to every community to buy in. That helps the big communities save costs. It kind of wasn't great for the small ones who now have to pay for the same amount of money for a lot less services. That was what I tried to do, keep the base fee the same for the smallest communities. Communities can order materials and they have to pay for what they order. So instead of the per capita fee, that's the trade-off there. And we aren't going to do any record keeping or reporting to the state. We'll tell you if you came to a training. We'll give you one report on what we did. But that's one of the reduction in staffing reduces the ability to do that. So that's the program we have. I have, like I said, only 2 communities that have formally opted out. So this is the new list. There's a few that internally have had a lot of staff changes, so I'm not sure, they're in a state of flux. And if you are an MS4 and you haven't been engaged with the NIRPC Community Partnership, it's never cost less to join, and we can still, it's mostly the advertising. That's the bulk of the money is going to be in-market advertising dollars. And then the training program and some of the volunteer programs. So does anyone have any questions?
Very good, thank you.
Will Splashy still be staffed?
Splash is not staffed by us. He's available, I would say, maybe a dozen. So it's a la carte. So if you pay $50 a year for access to Splash.
He is part of the sweat equity, and if you don't wear ice patches, then you have to sit.
Are you volunteering, Jeff?
No, Jeff is actually not an MS4.
George?
Mayor, or Mr. Chairman, this is only part of the story, and I don't think that we have the time, or many people have the inclination to go past it. The one thing I'm concerned about is, in my experience, it's never good. I heard a number of things today. It's never good to challenge the relationships that we have needlessly or too often with the state agencies that we have to deal with. And I hear some of that, and I've seen some of that. The involvement continues to shrink in this, and will be smaller as time goes by. And it's been difficult on all ends. And I think we all have to bear in mind, MS4 is a mandated program that most of us didn't ask for, and we got, whether we wanted to or not. So it's been a learning curve for everybody. We have found that the long-established soil and water conservation group in Lake County, in terms of those first two components on the minimum control measures, makes a lot more sense to be involved in, and I would encourage all the Lake County communities to look in that direction. They're getting better and better. Our money that we put into it year after year after year didn't seem to be cost effective. All that being said, there's a lot more to be said about it, but for once, and I know there's other people, Matt Lake from Maryville, who's an expert in all of this, probably one of the best in the state, who's helped a lot of communities. A lot can be said, but it's an evolving process. We agree with that, and thank you for your time and the report.
Can I just address the concern about the state agency, because I'm sensitive to that, and especially since the state agency at this point is represented by my predecessor here. And I don't think that anything I said here would be something that she would take issue with, and in fact, I don't even think that she's thoroughly dissatisfied with our new program, because last week she invited me to go to LaPorte County and make a presentation to that stormwater partnership about our program and explain the new structure and the opportunities, and I did meet with them. So I feel that that's a working relationship and continuing to progress. So I hope that that's not going to be an ongoing concern.
And I think there's a bureaucracy that's a lot of times unwilling to change. I believe in evolution, and if we're needed, we'll be around. If we're not needed, we can disband the program. We have other things that we can focus on and do. But I truly believe we're still at the point, particularly with new communities being brought in with new census, that this might be an opportunity to help them. It's all been with a sense of cooperation, collaboration, and economy. And when that ceases to happen, then we should cease to happen as the MS4 partner in the three-county area.
Matt Lake.
Well, I guess, I've seen these programs, a lot of them in the communities from the start, and a lot of them have evolved and grown, which is what the state wants to see. And as these programs grow and evolve, and as the state kind of changes focus and says, well, we want to see more localized implementation, you can't just pay money, have turnkey. So there has to be a balance, there has to be an evolution that occurs, as Kevin had said, in order to make programs as effective as possible, as fiscally responsible as possible, in order to meet the objectives of the state and our constituents, which are, everybody that pays a stormwater fee. And you mentioned about the localized branding and things like that. That's where, people that pay a stormwater fee, they want to see the town or the city logo on the brochure and things like that. So I think it's one of those things where our localized programs are evolving. The state doesn't want to see probably turnkey programs, but they want to see, everybody working together. So it's part of the process of growth, and growth is good. and that's something that we all need to consider.
So that's what we tried to do, accommodate the communities that have grown and still provide some level of service to the communities who aren't really there yet.
George, I think you would agree that the MS4 program going forward in this program, where other communities may be involved and not be involved, the one thing I've seen in my short amount of years is the communications between other communities who do partner with this. Because if we fix flooding at Crown Point, are we fixing flooding and pushing it on our neighbors, or the combination of the region, or the especially with Matt? We agree with this, that as long as we can continue to talk and share that information, we can really solve problems and not create a new one for somebody else. And that, I think that's really what's brought this program to life. So. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, Kevin, was there any further business from your?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you for your report. Thank you. We'll go to Finance and Personnel Committee. And Claire?
This morning, we were able to participate in an exit conference from the State Board of Accounts that they completed their annual audit of 2012 reports, and I am happy to report that there were no findings, and I'm very pleased to congratulate Angie Hayes and the staff on all of their efforts there. This is the 9th year in a row that NIRPC has no findings excuse me, from that annual audit, so very pleased to be able to report that to the group. Second item that I have is that there's a budget amendment that you'll find in your packets on page 9. And this is for an addition of $5,000 in the Communications Environmental Programs line item. These are outside donations that will then support CMAQ efforts that are not able to be covered under the federal funding. So the F&P committee this morning voted to recommend the approval of this amendment, and at this point I would move to amend the budget with the addition of $5,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second from the executive board? We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it.
And the second item of business is the procurement recommendations that you'll see on page 10 of your packet. 2 procurement recommendations, that first being public transit scheduling software and computers. This is for the city of LaPorte, and for us to be able to, and our partnering agency, which is the city of Michigan City, to be able to purchase some software to interact between those 2 different transit organizations. We may not use the full amount of the grant of $216,000, but wanted to be able to provide for that option. The second procurement recommendation is for the city of Valparaiso to be able to conduct a public transit route study for the city's V-Line service. It will be 80-20 money from Federal Transit Administration funds, and the recommendation is to purchase services along a public transit route study not to exceed $100,000. And I will at this point take the F&P committee's recommendation to the executive committee here and move that we approve these procurement recommendations.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it.
And my final item is that we discussed the update on the RFP's responses. The 26th of April is the deadline for all of the proposals to be submitted to NIRPC for the new office space lease. And the Finance and Personnel Committee will have an executive session on May 8th. That will be at 1 o'clock. This is open to any commission member that chooses to participate in the meeting, that they're welcome to attend to review the RFPs. We're not sure what the number of responses will be that we'll receive, so we don't know if we're going to have to make a recommendation on whether folks will pick their top 5, top 3. It'll all probably depend upon the total number that we receive, but want to make sure that everyone is aware that if you choose, all the commission members, if you should choose to participate, you're welcome to attend the Finance and Personnel meeting that will be on May 8th. And then there will be just a reminder, the May meeting of the full commission will have the executive session ahead of time, and then planning to have a vote at the full commission meeting, the public meeting then later. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Again, just a reminder, May 23rd is the scheduled full commission meeting. At 9 a.m. we begin with an executive session, and then we would go into a full commission public meeting to follow immediately after that executive session. So then we'll have emails and things like that going out to remind everybody that important date. And just a reminder that that meeting will be limited in scope. It will be just day-to-day operations at the full commission meeting, no presentations, just to expedite that day for everybody to accommodate the schedule. So, Mayor. Yes.
I think the mayor forgot the most exciting thing about LaPorte that I heard in a long time, that Willie Nelson is going to be in LaPorte this summer, which is awesome.
There's so many exciting things happening in LaPorte that I just never think of one.
Well, now you know what my priority
If I may, I'm pretty much committed to this area over here, but you bringing that up reminds me that July the 30th in Fort Wayne is Steely Dan. And given the option of the two, I think I've read them with Donald Fagen and Walter Beck.
Well, if you want to go there, Bob, on July 20, I'm coming to Fort Wayne to see the group of America. Coming here to Fort Wayne.
And you know the facility that all, forgive me if I get it wrong. The facility, and I would remind you all from Northwest Indiana, because let me take my NDOT hat off. As a newbie here, the facility that most of those concerts are performed in, bigger concerts in Fort Wayne, and Fort Wayne really has started to attract a lot of big names to the Coliseum. All of that $40 million in improvement came from a one-penny food and beverage tax. And we don't have the transient population that use your facilities and infrastructure and don't pay taxes. We don't have 1/100th of what you have here. And I'm not allowed to advocate anything.
Mr. Chair, I have just a question. I had the NIRPC executive meeting written down for May 16th. Is that not?
That's what it would have been, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not having that meeting on the 13th. It'll be a dual meeting then on May 23rd.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
I do have a final comment to add to this conversation. Blue Oyster Cult will be at Central Park. The mayor's going to play the cowbell.
There you go. More cowbell.
I'm sorry, we haven't confirmed the last. Okay, we're working on that.
I'll tell you what, Commissioner Carnahan from Cedar Lake is missing his opportunity to be here.
Right. Must be something.
Yes. Anybody else got any festivals going on or anything?
Better move on.
Smokey Robinson's coming to Hammond.
There you go. We'll move on to the Legislative Committee. Tom McDermott couldn't be here this morning because of the weather. Mayor Costas, I know you're the vice. My understanding was you guys were going to wait until after the assembly downstate is completed to bring your report back. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we're really looking forward more so to next year's what we decided. We're all following what's happening down there, and hopefully there'll be less damage than possible than could be. But I think it's better to, as we talk, to have an affirmative, proactive agenda, and we'll start working on that after this.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll go on to Transportation Policy Committee. Sean Pettigrew here. Stan Dobas is going to fill in for that report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Transportation Policy Committee met on April 9th. We had no actions for consideration today. The committee heard a presentation from Steve Strains and Hubert Morgan on the draft public participation plan. Action on the plan is anticipated at the May meeting. The committee also heard a presentation from NDOT and Parson Brinkerhoff on the proposed Ileana Corridor project. A request for inclusion of this plan has been received. The project team would like to see the Ileana in the 2040 Comprehensive Regional Plan in October of this year. The stakeholder group have met to recommend a selection of projects for the next transportation improvement program. The air quality conformity work is about to begin on the proposed program. The next meeting of the Transportation Policy Committee is scheduled for 9 a.m. on Tuesday, May 14th, and that completes the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to, we'll go to our Land Use Committee. We're going to defer to NIRPC staff. Matt's going to give a report.
Good morning, everybody. We are working in the Land Use Committee as it's more like a technical committee, try to implement the 2040 plan, and we had like 2 major presentations coming out of the new NIRPC programs that we established to implement the 2040 plan. The first program is Livable Centers Initiatives, and then under this one, we are meeting with the communities, try to define their existing livable centers or any area could be a potential for livable centers. So we met with 8 communities and we are meeting with the town of Porter today, try to define these boundaries. However, the reason that we are defining the boundary of the livable centers and also area around transit station is because we established a new funding program which we call it Creating Livable Communities, or CLC. So the purpose of this program is to try to support community-based projects that link land use and transportation, and also for a redevelopment or development of downtown area, neighborhoods area, station area, transit corridor. So we were able to identify 400,000 from the transportation funding, which will be available this fall of 2013 for planning, and any community could apply for that, but the eligibility to apply is the project has to be within the livable centers boundary that we are defining with the communities. And the other eligibility also is if you have a transit area, it has to be within certain boundary of a transit area. So the Land Use Committee basically work in these 2 projects, and also they are the assigned committee to establish the program, to review it, to put the eligibility and the criteria. And that's what we had for discussion in the last meeting. Also, we had a presentation for the IANA, and I think you're gonna hear that today also. So I don't need to report about that. So that's conclude my report.
Thank you. We'll move on to the pathway to 2040. Michael Griffin could not be here this morning, and we'll turn this over to James Dunn.
The Pathway to 2040 committee met on April 11th, and I chaired that committee in Michael's absence, and I'm sure the commission will want to join me in extending condolences to him, the loss in his family. The committee heard a presentation from Mitch Barloga on non-motorized transportation and tourism. Mitch also presented on redevelopment, citing an example of the Busch Stadium in Indianapolis. Staff reports included a report from the Land Use Committee on Livable Centers and Creating Livable Communities program, of which you just heard. The Urban Core Subcommittee and the current implementation initiatives were also part of that presentation. A status report on the Ileana corridor was given by Ron Shimizu from the consulting firm of Parsons and Brinkerhoff, and there was a lengthy question and answer session following that presentation. The next meeting of the Pathway to 2040 committee is scheduled for 9:00 a.m. on Tuesday, July 11th, and that will be here at NIRPC. This concludes my report.
Thank you. And this time we'll turn this over to Lindot for a discussion of music and or roadways.
And any other paraphernalia. we're moving forward with the National Lakeshore on the Lakeshore achieving jurisdiction of US 12 through that area. I think between the two of us, we understand where we're going to, and we want to make sure that we tie up all the loose ends as we go forward with this, so there's no question about what responsibility each group has and what jurisdiction prevails there. I like this, and I would think that most of the parties without specific interest from either side would think this is a good idea. I just see this as an opportunity for the National Lakeshore to take that portion of the highway and be able to create something that'll be much more attractive for tourism. I think the waterfront in this area, again, as an outsider, I think is probably the most underused facility and attraction that we have in Northwest Indiana. So I'm kind of excited to see that there's some opportunity for the Lakeshore to be able to take that over, to be able to create bike trails and some things like that that'll attract a lot more people into the area. We're working on, actually we're working on both the lift bridges. In the case of Riley Road and Mayor Copeland, which will be taking back that bridge, we're investing a great deal of money in that bridge to make sure it's right. Unfortunately, it broke some, as they're retrofitting the anchor bolts, they broke some of the bolts themselves, so it's going to take a little longer, but we want to make sure it's right when we hand it back to them. And we're investing some real money in doing that. We're also doing some work, some pump work on the Indianapolis Boulevard, the lift bridge also, in order to make it better. These are two bridges that have been neglected for a long time. And so it's going to take some real money to fix them, and we're in the process of achieving those things. Why I think of it, Jennifer Lander is with me today. Jennifer is our customer service manager. Hopefully you all get familiar with Jennifer. You know, I bring Mr. Pinkerton, the communications director, with me often. I want Jennifer to get some exposure too. I want you all to have somebody that is kind of a go-to person. I know at times it's hard to track me down. I'm not really hiding from you. Snyder says I am, but I'm not. But Jennifer is really good at what she does. We have most of our projects right now are just starting up. I'll give you a full report on those the next time around. As much as I hate rain, I see this as a real opportunity for our folks to get out and find flood-wise where our weaknesses are. So we're out taking a hard look at that to see if we have some areas that need to be dealt with. The program that we had, our capital program when I got here, was not probably the most high impact program that we could have had in dealing with our problems. In 2014, I think we'll have, because of an 18-month letting list, there's not much you can do with what was out there. We tried to repair some stuff and get a decent capital program in place. Starting in 2014, we're at a point where we can, me and my people that I have now, can grab control of the capital program. And so some of the greatest need areas for U.S. state and interstate highway, you'll see our program start to shift more directly to that. I just feel as though the program that I inherited was one of convenience and not necessarily based as much on need as I would have liked. So we're going forward with some responsible things, and we also, I think you all know that we want to be responsive to you. You all know how to get hold of me. I certainly will make myself available to you as much as I can, but I can only work with you if I know what it is that you need from me. It's good to see you, and I'm looking forward to Steely Dan. Remember, just a little 1% for you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
At this time, I would just like to say thank you, Mr. Alderman. We had a potential problem where if the bridges weren't synchronized, that it could be catastrophe, because we would just be hemmed in. We reported the problem to Mr. Alderman, and he swiftly abated the problem and averted catastrophe. So I don't know what the relationship with NDOT was in the past, and I don't know why Mayor Snyder can't hunt that good, but I can find him with no problem. So again, thank you.
I appreciate that. And I promise you, the only time we'll pick up both lift bridges so no one can get through is if that person that we talked about gets sick.
Okay. So thank you.
We won't landlock them in the emergency vehicle. No, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We're gonna go right to Ileana.
Yeah, I'm going to do a quick overview of where we are with the project. For those of you who are not aware, there is a public meeting tonight at Lowell Middle School. What you're seeing here is kind of a combination of stuff that we showed to the committees over the past month and a combination of what you're going to see tonight. I'll just quickly go through things. Let you know the project is still in its planning stages. Because of the size of it, it was broken into 2 tiers. Tier 1 is complete. We did that in January. I'll go over some details of that in a second. And we're just starting in Tier 2 right now. Keep in mind, though, as we're doing both these tiers of study, NDOT and IDOT are the drivers along with Federal Highway, but a big portion of this is coordination with our local agencies, and you can see NIRPC is right there, highlighted in blue. So any information you guys can provide to us to help us with this planning process is appreciated. So Tier 1 started a couple years ago. We had numerous corridor planning group meetings, rounds of public meetings, formal hearings back in August of last year. We have lots of information as far as the website, the newsletters get sent out. So the information's out there. If you ever have any questions about how to get more information about the project, just let us know. So what do we find out in the Tier 1 study? Well, there's a lot of congestion in the area. A good chunk of it is due to freight and mobility issues there. There's not a primary east-west corridor in that area, and based on projections we're seeing, it's only going to get worse. Obviously, we know it's issues on the Borman, US 30. This project was envisioned essentially to help alleviate some of those concerns. During the Tier 1, you can see the little spaghetti bowl of alternatives up there at the top left. So a lot of those alternatives were mapped out, even with some of the outreach from the local officials and property owners. Those were dwindled down to a list of initial alternatives that we had analyzed in more detail. Eventually, we ended up with 3 alternatives that we carried forward in the draft EIS. And after further study, the B3 was the selected corridor for the project, essentially going from I-55 to I-65. I-55 is near Wilmington. It kind of heads due east, going just south of Peatone, and heads over to 65, kind of between the towns of Lowell and Cedar. This is a question that a lot of people, especially in Indiana, obviously ask. What's the benefit for Indiana? Why do we need this project here? The major benefit that the region will see is a reduction in congestion in facilities that you currently have. A lot of the concerns we get from property owners and locals is, why can't you just take those funds and improve the facilities you have now? Well, the Borman's built out. That's as wide and as big as we can get it. You're not going to get any more traffic there. To do the same types of improvements on US 30, US 12, State Road 10, State Road 2, those routes is going to cost you not just construction dollars, but a lot more in real estate monies, utility costs because of the built-up nature of those corridors. There are significant benefits as far as jobs and cost savings. It also will improve air quality because you're going to have less congestion in the area. So there are a number of benefits due to the congestion relief. So where we're at now, Tier 2. The B3 corridor was roughly 2,000 foot wide. We took that 2,000 foot wide corridor. We're looking to where we can actually put that roadway within that 2,000 foot wide corridor with the least amount of impacts for both environmental, real estate, utilities, all those types of things. The alignment's not set now. As you'll see at the meeting tonight, that's our best guess as it is right now. It will shift, but the final proposed location will be this fall. What's going on now? We have lots of survey groups going on out there. We have geotech groups going on out there. We've just started some of the financial studies. We're in the process of being entitled research for property. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that you guys don't see on a daily basis that goes on a project of this size. And we've got dozens and scores of people working on the project. We've already had a number of outreach opportunities in Tier 2 even. Like I said, the Tier 1 Rob was back in January, and since then we've had stakeholder meetings, one-on-one meetings with landowners specifically impacted within the B3 corridor. We had our corridor planning group back in March, a meeting with local officials, including some of yourself. And we had our technical task force meeting last week as well to discuss land use options for the project and how this can be, how we can better utilize your current plans and help facilitate this project with those plans. We've had 2 public meetings. One was Tuesday night in Piatone. Again, we have the other one tonight in Lowell. A big component of this project is funding, how we're going to do this project. In Indiana, the engineering and real estate aspects of the phase will be state funded. We have the funds for those. The construction dollars, though, are not there. That's where we're trying to investigate the potential for P3 opportunity where we can synergize some of that private money to build a project of this scope and size. A lot of people say, well, why can't you just build it traditionally with cost money from state tax dollars? Well, we can, but it'll take us longer to get those funds. It'll take us much longer to build a project, and you'll have to build it in sections that may not necessarily be very well received from a local standpoint because it's not really a usable facility. If you want to get a 50-mile corridor that can be built and utilized by the region, the sooner you can get those dollars into the system, the better. And the private way, a good way to do that. To give you just an overall overview of where we are, 2012 is the Tier 1 study that getting completed in January. We're in Tier 2 now. We anticipate getting a record of decision for Tier 2 in March of next year. Right-of-way acquisition will probably begin early next year. And the procurement process, we're actually talking with the industry people and figuring out how the P3 process can work. That's going to start here anytime as we're reading the financial studies right now. Next steps, I believe April 5th, a letter was sent to NIRPC's office requesting that the Indiana project be incorporated in the local plan. We've heard some of that from the committee reports. And we're working with those committees and other local staff to try to get information exchanged for both groups so that you guys can have the information you need to have this project incorporated within your plan, and also the information we need so we can make sure we're incorporating your plans into our project. So that's kind of where we are. That's a very quick overview of the project. Again, the public meeting will be tonight at Lowell Middle School. We'll have a chance for question and answers. People can fill out comment cards and have their questions answered by me at that time. There will also be landowner representatives there, land acquisition folks to answer some questions with that. We'll have maps available. People will come out and look at the project and ask their questions, anything they have.
What time does that meeting start?
I believe it opens at 5. The presentation will be like on a rolling loop, and then at about 6 o'clock when the Q&A session starts. I think we'll actually do it by 4 or something like that. But, so we'll be there until you guys leave. So.
Any questions, Commissioner?
I have one question.
Sure.
It's my understanding that you're going to cut off 12 north-south roads in South County because you're not going to build overpasses over the expressway?
That is not true.
That's not true?
There are 15 local roads that are impacted by this project. As of right now, the plan has all but, I think, 4 of those roads being connected, either via an overpass or an underpass going through. And the ones that right now are slated to be closed, again, it's still being analyzed, and we're constantly getting information from emergency service personnel, school districts, farmers, just finding out if we were to close those roads, what the impacts would be. And our goal is to minimize those impacts, whether it be response time to emergency personnel, school bus, how long the children are on the buses as opposed to what they are now. It's our goal to analyze that so that those impacts are as minimal as possible. And again, we're still reevaluating those right now. We have, I think it's just 4 roads right now that are definitely scheduled to be closed. Or that are currently scheduled to be closed.
Yeah, I was conferring with South County Commissioner, Commissioner Shue, and that was his understanding that 12 of those north-south roadways would be cut off.
In Lake County?
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
Well, you have it recorded. You have it recorded, I'm saying it's not true.
Yeah. Okay.
As a matter of fact, between US 41 and 055, all but one facility would remain open.
Mr. Chairman, you've explained your calendar and what you anticipate happening next. It sounds like this is ongoing, this decision's been made, this is going to be a reality. Then I read in papers or blogs or whatever about rallies and protests and things of that nature, and then we get this information from kind of through the grapevine about all these roads being closed. I would just ask you, is this a done deal? And whether it is or it isn't, can you make sure that you get the kind of information you just confirmed to make certain that that gets out there? Because it seems that, I mean, as Commissioner Allen said, it seems like there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it would be, and obviously there's concern by the people of the county, so it would certainly be incumbent on you to make sure we can get the right information out and whatever, maybe even list, here's the facts kind of thing. But the bottom line is this a done deal? Is this happening?
It's not a done deal until we're turning dirt. There are a lot of hurdles to overcome.
So they can protest all the way up until you
No,
turn
I'm not
the
saying
dirt.
that either. If I were a landowner in the region and I had some of the concerns that they have, I would feel just as obligated to make those concerns known to the public officials that are in charge of this project as they are. I don't wish them not to protest. That's what they need to do. And actually, I encourage them to get us that information and their concerns so we can address them if we can. There are some concerns that are out of our hands that we cannot address. There are some that we can. And we'll do our best to address them once we can. As far as the information goes, we do have a website that is the core center for all of our information, IleanaCorridor.org. And the information there is current and correct as of the moment it's posted on that website. As a matter of fact, the current location of the B3 alignment, I think it was just changed last week.
Yeah,
and updated.
After Illinois.
Yeah, so that's a central location. We are, as you say, we're in the process right now of putting together a communication plan for how to work with those groups, because there are a lot of groups and they all have a slightly different concern about the project. And our goal is to reach out to them to address, like I said, as many concerns as we can. We're not going to make everybody happy. When you have a project like this that affects people's property or their livelihood, you're going to have people that are not going to be happy about it. And I understand that. It's totally understandable.
Well, going back to those roads, when I first took a look at this, it seemed like there were a lot more than that being cut off, and I would suggest that the officials, the public officials who expressed concern about that, and the citizens who expressed concern about that, had a very positive effect on your continuing to look at those and cutting down on the number of roads that would be closed. So I think that's a good process.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm going to extend you an invitation now that you've gotten alignment a little bit closer to what you believe it will be, to come to Environmental Management Policy Committee. Even as soon as May, we meet the first Thursday of every month. But it'd be good because George mentioned road crossings, but you have waterway crossings, wetland crossings, environmentally sensitive areas. And I think it'd be good for the environmental group to hear more about what this is.
By all means, yeah. We'll try to reach out to every committee that we can. And on the same note, are there any meetings that you hear about that our group is putting on that you have interest in attending? Please let us know. We can give you information so you can attend those meetings as necessary.
Any other questions?
I will just add, we have referenced the copy of the letter that Jim had referenced, and Steve had to make some copies of it. So if you're interested in seeing the letter that officially is requesting this particular timeline, I can pass those around for you to take a look at. The timeline is faster than I think we had originally anticipated, but NDOT has been very cooperative in trying to work with us on how best to accomplish that timeline for what we need to do in our analysis. So they are looking for this to be considered for our, in addition to our 2040 Comprehensive Regional Plan by October of this year. So that is the time frame we're in.
Just let the record reflect that that letter's been announced here and will be part of public record moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the Northwest Indiana Economic Development District. Rosemary Allen, Vice Chair of the committee.
Yes. The last SEDS meeting was held March the 14th at 8:30 a.m. in the morning. And as I mentioned at our last executive board meeting, at that SED meeting, we scored the Purdue projects. One was for a manufacturing center, one was for a commercialization center, and they were making application for public works grants, each grant in the amount of $2.5 million. Those grants require 50% match. The deadline for the grants was, or is, June 13th of this year. The Comprehensive Economic Development Strategic Plan will be released to the public in print this April 30th. The document will be available through NIRPC, and a copy will be posted on the website. This is the completed updated SED document. As I indicated at the executive board meeting, currently we are not operating under a planning grant because that grant was closed out and the scope of the grant was complete. Currently we have no debt. We have approximately $25,000 in the bank. We do need to have an audit performed, and that's the only expense so far for 2013, which should not be a large expense because the number of transactions are very small. The EDA is currently operating under a continuing resolution. Their resolution was extended. Tomorrow I will be meeting with Mr. Warner and Mr. Kalabowski, and we will discuss an action plan for the EDD for the remainder of 2013. The communities can still submit projects to be included in the SEDS, and you can do it through our website. The deadline for submitting a public works grant is June 13th, as I indicated earlier. Technical and planning and assistant grants, I think the deadline is similar. I think it's June 13th also. As I indicated, the EDA continues to operate under congressional resolution.
Anticipating some great growth in the city of Gary regarding population, putting it in the plan does not help our city. I don't know if members of the, let's see, well, one of your staff got an award for 30 years of service and is credited with being having a lot of skill regarding making models regarding this. One of the projects that comes to mind is the regional bus fiasco, $13 million to reinvent public transportation, create a region-wide public transportation that was going to affect every corner of the tri-county area, when really public transportation is needed in built-up urban areas. Cities like East Chicago and Hammond, Gary, into Portage, maybe even to Michigan City, where you've got the ridership to support it. Wasted a lot of money on that, and not only wasted the money, but put a lot of stress on the only existing regional bus service in Northwest Indiana, which is the Gary Public Transportation, the East Chicago as well. So, you know, no credit for the what I think a tremendous disservice, where this organization should have been sounding a clarion for the dire conditions in Gary. Instead, we want to smooth it right over and say, and I'm going to quote from here, it's almost laughable. I almost cry to think about it. In this text-heavy plan document, that Lake and Gary restored the Prairie School-style pavilion, and all of these accomplishments align with the 2040 plan's vision, which every community supports for a vibrant, revitalized region. We remodeled the pavilion at Marquette Park, $28 million. You realize we've got 2 lawnmowers in the entire city. The park department cut 56 parks. They're talking about cutting the grass every 3 or 4 weeks. We haven't got a single operating ladder truck, even though we've got a dozen high-rise buildings. You know, so no thanks for, you know, patting yourself on the back, talking about what a great job we're doing. But really what we need this organization to do is look critically at what's happening in that city. 80,000 people, it's declining every month. I guess eventually it won't be a problem, everyone will be gone. But I don't think that's the best use for the 55 square miles of well-located real estate. Just talking about prairie-style pavilion. So hope that we'll have a correction on this, because almost everything regarding the city of Gary is wrong. Almost every single utterance in this document is wrong. And I don't know about the rest of the communities. I don't live in your communities. But as far as city of Gary, it's back to the drawing board, and I hope that you will amend this document. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Not when you're done with public comment.
Go ahead.
The Lake Michigan Coastal Program is filling their seats for the Coastal Advisory Board, which met yesterday afternoon for the 2014 funding cycle and technical assistance opportunities. We have 3 seats available. We need a Porter County resident, a Porter County city or town representative, and a Lake County Chamber of Commerce, any Chamber of Commerce in Lake County. If you or know of someone who's interested, just let us know. We can work with them to get them on the board. Right now we have some representatives from the Coastal Advisory Board, including Nicole Barker, Chris Krause, Craig Phillips, Chris Myers, Dan Plath, Bob Don, Tiffany Tolbert, Christine Livingston, and Ray Joseph. So if you feel that you can contribute or are interested in advising or voting on the Coastal Advisory Board for Lake Michigan Coastal Program, please let us know. We can get you an application and get you as a board member for 2014.
Thank you. Any other public comment? We'll close the public comment section and announcements.
Since Bob Carnahan isn't here, I got 4 things real quickly. First, I wanted to publicly thank our volunteer fire departments. I was on the way in, I saw volunteer firemen going to the scene of an accident, and I thought of them and how many hours they put in, and just that so many of our communities have volunteer firemen, and a lot of them don't even live in our communities. They live in other communities and serve. So that was one comment. Next comment was to, our announcement is to Bob Alderman, thanking you for what you did to the downtown Gary US 12, reconstructing that. That was awesome. I look forward to the second half, getting out to the airport. Maybe this year, maybe next year. Calumet Summit is May 14th and 15th at the newly remodeled Marquette Park Pavilion. And the EPA contacted me. They're meeting with me soon about 2 sustainable community grants. These are the things that at NARC, it's the Department of Transportation, HUD, and EPA working together, and there was 2 that passed in our region, one in East Chicago and one in Gary. And as the vice chair of the Lake Michigan Marine and Shoreline Development Commission, I'm meeting with them sometime soon. So I'll let you know. Those are my 4 things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other announcements?
I have 2 announcements to be able to share. I should have brought it up in the previous upcoming events section of that May 31st, June 1st, and 2nd, the City of LaPorte will be hosting the Maple City Grand Prix. That we're having an F1 boat race on one of our lakes, and it's going to be a great time. That these boats go up to 130 miles an hour and can turn on a dime, so it's going to be a really exciting event. We're expecting thousands of folks to be able to come out and enjoy this. So I want to welcome everyone. It's free to be able to attend, and should be a great time. And we also have restarted our 2nd season of Fitness Friday, so every Friday afternoon at 5:15, anyone is welcome to come and join. We have a free 5K walk or run, and this year we added cycling as well. And so there's a 6-mile cycling route or an 11.5-mile cycling route for those that may be inclined to go a little farther. So certainly want to welcome everyone to come and enjoy those activities. 5:15 every Friday through October 11th.
Any other announcements? Here none, we'll turn the report to the Executive Director, Ty Moore.
Great. Well, first I want to congratulate Jody from our staff and Sis from New Chicago for their color coordination today. I don't know if you noticed them in the corner. They're quite a picture over there, and Bob tried to get in there, as did Ron Schmizo, apparently. He tried to get with that, so nice job. First, and also want to congratulate again, in all seriousness, NIRPC staff, Angie and her team. In 9 years, no comments or federal findings on the audit. So that puts you all in a very good position. So congratulations there as well. The big news, of course, this week was the American Planning Association conference and the award that was received. Just want to, I think you all know, because you all worked so hard on this plan, and so many did in this region. This is about finding real solutions to real challenges, not to try to gloss things over, but to try to identify those successes that we celebrate, and also try to find some real solutions to try to deal with the challenges that the region faces. And I think the document successfully does that, which is what this article tries to do. You have on your copies of this. This is from the American Planning Association's national publication, Planning Magazine. Not only got a 2-page spread on the award as being the Comprehensive Plan Award winner across the nation for this category, but then also used a great photograph of the lakefront as the 2-page photo spread for all the awards. So great attention in Planning Magazine. That award was presented Tuesday at the American Planning Association National Conference. Kudos to staff to work so hard to get a photograph from that event into this newsletter that I printed in time for you all this morning. So those that were able to attend are in this photo here. It was a great recognition. There was a 2-minute overview video about the plan and the process in the region that got shown between an audience of about 5,500 folks. So great spotlight on the region during that event. We'll get a copy of that video that we can hopefully show you at a future meeting. And we do have we don't have the actual award yet, which is this nice crystal blocky thing. We do have this great certificate, so I'm glad to pass that around for you to see as I bend it all up right in front of you. That was presented at the conference on Tuesday. Not only the award, but we also had 2 other showcases of the region going on during the conference. I facilitated a session at the beginning of the conference on redefining rural was the topic. And it worked with Urban Rural Institute that's based in Columbia, Missouri, but has offices all over the country, on global economic studies that have shown the interplay between urban and rural areas. And so I was able in that presentation to showcase the 2040 plan, but also to underscore the fact that even though the plan, as I think we're all behind, shows investment into the core communities of Hammond, Chicago, Gary, Michigan City, it certainly respects the smaller towns and rural areas within this region as being equally important to the success of the region, and that's what the global research shows. So I was able to talk about how we're addressing that in this region. I think to great response. The room was absolutely packed. People were sitting on the floors, bringing in more chairs. It just underscores, I think, the nerve that issue of recognizing the interplay between urban and rural areas is important across this whole country. The other big thing that was great to showcase this region was a mobile workshop that took place yesterday, all day long, looking at northwestern Indiana. Kudos to Rich Barloga from our staff that organized that, as well as Craig Phillips from Michigan City and Bob Thompson from Porter County. All put that together, so we were able to bring participants from across the region and show them highlights of the area. All three of them has left. We probably warned them out, I guess, yesterday, but Mayor Stuhura, Mayor Freeman Wilson, and Mayor Snyder were all presenters of that. Nancy Adams was able to come along as well on that tour. So we got to showcase that, and as a participant on that tour, I was able to hear the comments, and to a person, I think everyone was essentially blown away by what was happening in northwestern Indiana, and was not aware of the assets that this region has. It also underscored the challenges as we went through other areas of the region, but I think planners from across the country, I think, appreciated what's going on here and what this region has to offer. In fact, several of them talked about wanting to come back and bring their families, so I think it was very successful in that regard. So we've had a lot of spotlight this week and lately, and just want to underscore that. And underscore that also means that we have a lot of momentum to be able to implement what that plan actually recommends. And so I think we're off and running to be able to do that. The last thing I want to highlight is I think you all got the email from Mary on our attempt here at NIRPC to try to reduce our paper consumption. That was, I think, an overwhelming response, I think, positively to want to carry through and get agendas and whatnot electronically. Mary did some quick research. I don't know if you want to highlight.
Yeah, we've got about, I think about 15 communities responded back to me, and to a man, it was all positive. Nobody said, no, this is terrible, I want my hard copy.
Yeah.
So, and then maybe in the future, we could start doing it for actual meeting packets here. Just showing them up on the board, and anything that we need to have handed out, we would of course do. And also, if you want hard copy, we can certainly provide you with them.
Of course, if you need it that way, we're happy to provide it, but it's just an attempt we're trying to do across all the committees to try to reduce the paper stream, and so far the response has been very positive to doing that. To help with that also, for those of you that do bring iPads, Jeff, to the meeting, we've also expanded our Wi-Fi range in the building, so we have several units that help bring that better into this room to be able to help do that. There's a new password for the Wi-Fi for guest accounts, so if you're not able to get on, get with one of us to give you that password to be able to access the internet from here. So we're trying to do that. There you go, that's all I have, unless there's any other questions or anything.
Other questions, commissioners? That being said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Anybody want to stay?